What's up, everyone? So this video is going to be an intro to the way that I draw standard deviation projections because it is a bit different than the way that a majority of traders draw them. So this video specifically is going to be on how to find manipulation legs and how to draw standard deviation off of those manipulation legs, but I will not be getting into what exactly each level means, but we'll save that for another video. But before I begin, I do want to give a huge shout out to the guy I originally learned standard deviation from, and his name is Dexter over at Monster Lab on YouTube. So let me show you what's actually possible with standard deviation projections based off what I'm about to show you. If I go back to NQU, because that was the contract we were on at the time, I'll show you an accurate depiction of how I was able to call out a crazy dump before it even happened using standard deviation. So we're on NQU, and you can see here we had a leg down here. We go all the way up to -4, which should be the end of the projection, meaning terminus, the end. So we hit that to the tick, we get a fresh leg, and then we go down to -2. But I was able to call out that we would get to -2 on this day, Friday the 19th, and I'll give you guys a screenshot of that as well. Remember, this is the daily chart. People call me crazy, all types of stuff, but we still got there, 1,800 points later, right? And so that's the type of stuff that's possible based on what I'm about to show you. But yeah, hopefully you guys find value in this video, and if you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get to them. And if you want to see a part 2 of this video, be sure you give this a like. He says, Playa, when drawing your standard deviations, how do you decide the first 2 data points? That's a good question. So you'll get better with it from experience, but what I like to look for is a sharp, jagged move in either direction. So in general, we're looking to long, right? Which means we need a stop run to the downside first if we're trying to long. This eliminates let me back up a little bit. So let's talk about what a stop run actually does for your trade. Okay. So for example, say we tried to get in, like say I was thinking about getting in up here on this OB, right, to target this high because I was saying that should be the draw. Say I got in there, I'm now trapped in a long because this had to be a stop run. We had to tap into the 5-minute gap. When we have a stop run, it's in the name. It takes out everyone who was long. Everyone who got in off this inverse down here got stopped out on this wick. Everyone who got in, just put in a buy limit here got stopped out. Every single person everyone who got long on this run up got stopped out because we hit every single point except for the actual, well, actually we hit the next low. The only thing we didn't hit was the actual low that sent us up in the very first place, which is why we stopped the last line of defense in the leg. Okay. So when you're looking for a stop run, you want it to be very obvious. This right here was sort of a stop run, but it's not obvious. This right here is fairly obvious, right? I was actually anticipating that we would stop here, then bounce, but we made another leg, and that's when it gave me the idea to look on the 5-minute to see how much time we had left. Okay. So to answer your question about where I put it, the standard deviation, I use it from the bodies, but a lot of people use the wicks. So certain people, or most people, would use it like this. They would put a 1 down here, and they would put the 0 up here. Okay. I don't like to do it that way because to me it's not as precise. Yes, it does still work, don't get me wrong. But in my opinion, for you to actually get the level of precision that I'm looking for, I would do it off the bodies. So I put the 1 at the body low, or the open of this bearish candle. I'm sorry, the close of the bearish candle. And then you'd have it right here at the close of the bullish candle. Exactly, Dr. Q gets it. The reasoning behind me using the bodies instead of the wicks is because the bodies are the only real thing. Okay, the algo hates wicks. This right here, this wick, does not exist. It's the reason why we spend very little time here, is because this right here, even though there's bodies here, this entire thing is a massive wick on the 5-minute, which is exactly why we pop straight back up. That's the entire idea of a manipulation leg. That's why I said when we come down like this, it has to be followed by a quick move up. It's because this confirms that it's going to be a higher time frame wick once we pop it right back up very quickly. That's the idea behind it. So you have your manipulation leg like this. I like to try to get in OTE sometimes. But when the setup is very clean like so, you will find that we'll make a bullish breaker. And I don't really want to get into breakers or anything right at this time, but this right here would be a bullish breaker on the 30-second. And you could see we create a breaker right here on the 0. And then everything below this black line is a perfect spot for you to get in. Or your 2022 model here, or you could get in this gap because they both end up holding. In this scenario, they end up holding. Sometimes they don't hold. Anyways, so yeah, we get a bullish breaker, and then, we were already confident on the draw and liquidity, so all we needed was a stop run. So the stop run, not only does it stop all the people who are long here, but it also gives you a sense of clarity of where the market is going to pick a top and a bottom. And I know ICT says you shouldn't pick tops and bottoms. Well, guess what? We just did, and it worked perfectly. The thing with manipulation legs is we will not even think about hitting this low. We won't even think about maybe even hitting this low because we've picked the bottom. We expect price to start a full-on buy model from this low. The reason why is because it goes back to what I was just saying. We'll spend very, very little time here because all this price action right here is a higher time frame wick, and if I go to the 5-minute, you can clearly see what I'm talking about. This would be your CRT that everyone loves to talk about. Candle range theory, whatever you want to call it, a soup, whatever. We soup this low on a 30-second, come back. This right here is manipulation, and we pop right back up. The entire reasoning behind manipulation legs, you're supposed to get the final leg. Now, I don't know if you guys remember from me saying the daily stuff, like when I was predicting the dump, I was saying we have the final manipulation leg on the daily. The entire point of standard deviation, you're supposed to get the last leg, the final leg, not the entire thing. Some cases, of course, you can see here, if I use the entire thing, we hit OTE, right? Which means that we should probably go to -2. Yes, sometimes it works. Sometimes it's good to use it. Like in this case, you probably could get away with using it because the 5-minute, it's going to be the entire thing anyways. But just keep in mind that when you do the entire thing, you're basically just getting the higher time frame manipulation leg. So like on the 1-minute, me personally, I would use this. But this right here is a higher time frame one. That's why the 30-second is honestly better, because it's a bigger leg on the lower time frame, and this is the true manipulation leg because it's most easiest to see. Because if you go on the 1-minute, you can see the wick is so big that there's not even anything there, which is why, in my opinion, the 30-second is better. Oh, that's a good question. For the people who didn't know, I kind of tried to explain it before, but when looking for manipulation legs, it has to be straight bearish candles or straight bullish candles. And what I mean by that is you can see on this run down, it's straight bearish candles. There's no bullish candle in between this run down. There's no bullish candle in between this run, which is why I was getting ready to draw it like this. But then when we got these bullish candles and we come back down, I know from experience, and you will too, as you do it, this right here would be the next or final manipulation leg. Crypto says, how do you identify that manipulation leg? So manipulation legs happen when we have massive displacement in one direction. And what that means is, of course, that we'll have straight bullish candles or straight bearish candles in one direction before we, distribute, which is the opposite direction. So in this case, right, I'm sure a lot of people can see that this right here is accumulation. Right? This right here is accumulation, and AMD, right? So every single time manipulation happens right after accumulation, it doesn't happen any other way than that, right? So this is accumulation, which means this down move would be manipulation, and you can see we really speed up here, accelerate down, big bearish candles, right? Some people, when they draw out manipulation legs, they would take the entire leg. They would take from here all the way back up here. I don't do that because it's not as precise, which is why I kind of just use this, because it's the last set of straight bearish candles on the 5 minute. You know, if I go on the 1 minute, that's going to be a lot of bearish candles. That's about right here. As you can see on the 1 minute, it's like straight bearish candles here. So to help you out, if you're a beginner trying to find manipulation legs, I've noticed it really helps if you change your chart to a line chart. You can clearly see the structure here. Like you can clearly see, you know, this is a really jagged move down, and then we just boom, fly right back up. The thing about manipulation legs, you don't have to catch this in time. Like you can wait until we really come all the way back up here to consider this a manipulation leg. All it's there to do is help you find a target, right? So boom, say we're somewhere right here and you're like, oh, I think this is a manipulation leg. I don't know that, but you know, let me go in the line chart and just draw it like that, right? And so you can say, okay, we're somewhere right here. I think this is a manipulation leg. We do have an inverse. I'm going to try it and target the -2, because -2 in this case lines up with pretty much with this high. And at the time, say you noticed it, you know, right here, we didn't hit that high yet. So there's your target. You could either wait for this low to get swept or maybe take this OB entry, right? Because the OB actually is what sent us to the high. For standard deviation, what I do is I just mark out the entire area, like the -2 to 2.5, because that's the official reversal spot swap. In this case, you can see that we clearly reverse right here. And if we reverse right there, that means that we technically have a fresh manipulation leg down, but I'm not going to draw that out. Because in this case, we do still hold the bullish one, because that's just how strong it is. So there's a lot that goes into it, but keeping things simple, I'm just kind of trying to keep it simple. If you're looking for a manipulation leg, all you want to see is straight bearish candles or straight bullish candles, depending on the direction. And so I'll show you an example of a bearish one right here, right? That 8:30 candle that we got was the news. We quickly come down, leaving us, you know, a Judas swing, and then we dump. And so say, like I said, you don't have to catch it super quick in live time. You could have noticed this was a manipulation leg when we were way down here. It's really just to help you find targets. So you would draw this out, maybe use the wicks. That's what I'm saying. I like to use the bodies because of the line chart. To me, that's the only thing that's real. But I know a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people that you've seen use standard deviation use it off the wick. But like I said, I use the bodies because it's far more precise. So yeah, you have the manipulation leg drawn from the top to the bottom because it's very obvious, right? And you can see yesterday we hit -4. We basically came all the way down to -4 before we even thought about having a real move back up, right? And we hit that right at 12 o'clock. That is like the definition of scripted, you know, predictable, whatever you want to call it, a program. Right at 12 o'clock, like you can't make that up. That's what I'm saying. And you don't get that type of level of precision if you use the wicks. So let me show you that. Right. You see -4, it does hit, but we kind of go below it. Right? It does reverse. It does reverse. Don't get me wrong. It does reverse at -4. But it's not like to the tick how the other one was. Like you wouldn't just put a buy limit here at -4, but if you use the bodies, you know, that happens right at 12. That's like a 12 o'clock reversal kind of a thing. Okay, so this is the settings that you want to have for your just your basic standard deviation right here. So you guys can take a screenshot of that if you want. You don't have to use the same colors or anything. And you don't have to even extend the lines to the right because it makes your chart look a lot cleaner if you just have it like set up like this. Right? But if I extend the lines to the right, then it'll take up the entire chart. And you can of course, you know, lock it in place or whatever you want to do with that.